little sampling of Hello, My Name Is, performed by our next guest, Christian singer-songwriter Matthew West, who joins us from Nashville. So, Matthew, as you look out at all these people who are setting up their blankets and chairs on the National Mall in the shadow of the Washington Monument, what's your big takeaway about this event?
Well, first of all, I'm having severe FOMO right now. We played a show for about 10,000 people in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I wish I could be in D.C. with you today, Peter, but it's incredible to see. The message is loud and clear, and it's the message that we believe that there's power in prayer, and we want to be reminded to be praying for our leaders, praying for our military, and praying for the future of our nation.
Tens of millions of people are finding your music on YouTube. Presumably the YouTube crowd skews a little bit younger. We want to ask you about this great awakening that people have been talking about, where young people are drinking less, going out less, and going to church and having more faith. What do you think is the biggest driver of that from your perspective?
Yeah, I get a front row seat. In fact, last night, again, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, thousands of people. I look down on the front row, I see a young girl. I found out her name was Erin. She was singing every word to every song, and I stopped the show and had to call her out because there was such a joy in her life, and she was singing. And at the end of the concert, I invited that crowd, anybody that wanted to say a prayer with me, to place their faith in Jesus. And this girl, she bowed her head and she repeated after me and she prayed. And it was just a powerful reminder that I think deep in each one of our souls, and not just the younger generation, but every single human being has a longing to find purpose in life. And so I think we're living in a world right now where a younger generation, I've got 2 daughters myself, and I see it. They see everything artificial on TikTok and social media, and they're starting to see through the difference between what's real and what's fake, and they want real. And so I think in the search for real and in the search for purpose in their own life, they're beginning to find their way back to that message of faith, and maybe saying, hey, maybe mom and dad weren't so wrong after all. Maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's a creator of my story. Maybe there's an author of my story, and maybe he's got a better plan than I do, and I want to pursue that.
And one of the most interesting things about what you just said, so young people are using, they are seeing all this artificial stuff on their phones, but the phone is also how they're going to find something like Matthew West's YouTube channel. And so how do you break through all of this junk that kids see, young people see on TikTok?
Well, I think it's like today's event. You know, the goal of a Christian, of a follower of Christ, is to walk through any open door, to occupy any opportunity that you get. And even like today, given the opportunity to talk to you today, I got the opportunity to visit the Pentagon and sing Christmas songs at Christmas time. Wherever the Lord opens a door for me, I want to be an authentically flawed version of myself that's willing to be unapologetic about my faith and be the first person through the songs that I sing or the stories that I tell to tell the world, hey, I'm far from perfect, but let me tell you about a God who's changed my life. And let me tell you about how he reminds me that he's never given up on me. And so I think the answer is simple, whether it's TikTok or Instagram. Yes, I'm on all of those things, and all my music is out on all of those platforms. But I hope to be a voice as they're scrolling through, that maybe they'll stop on one of those videos that I post, and they won't see some Christian pretending he's got it all together, but they'll hear honesty, vulnerability, and authenticity. And ultimately, that's what I think makes somebody, a person of faith, most attractive to the world around them. We want them to see, hey, there's something different about you. You're not preaching to me. You're not pretending you're perfect, but you're pointing me to a God who says he can change me from the inside out. And when they tap into what's real, they want more of that.
And Matthew, you've got a huge platform, 5 Grammys, tens of millions of views on YouTube. How much pressure does that bring with what you're trying to do?
Well, I grew up under pressure. I'm a preacher's kid, Peter, and I'm still in recovery for that. And I grew up in the front row of my dad's church, and I felt like all eyes were on me all the time. And you know what comes from that can be a pressure to pretend. And I heard you interviewing Jesus moments ago, which I got to say was kind of intimidating that I was going to have to follow Jesus. But, you know, I felt that same pressure.
It's a good Sunday show booking, yeah.
Yeah, when you feel pressure to be perfect, you tend to perform. And you know what? I'm a performer for a living, but I've learned when I sit down and I write my songs not from a place of, what do I want people to think about me? But from a place of, man, the Bible talks about working out your faith with fear and trembling. In other words, the understanding that I am not the finished version of myself. And I don't have to pretend to be. And so when I sit down and write my songs or do my concerts, I want to come across from a place of just like, hey guys, I'm just trying to figure this out, but God's grace has changed my life, and every single morning the Bible says His mercy is new. And I tell you what, I'd be a wreck, I'd be a lost cause if I didn't know about that mercy that gives me a second chance every single day. And so that's the place from which I try to live my whole life, not trying to perform like I was in the front row of my dad's church, but just being a flawed human being who's keeping his eyes on Jesus every step of the way.
Well, Matthew West, thank you very much for being part of our special show today.
Thanks, Peter.
Much more ahead as we broadcast live from Rededicate 250 on the National Mall. Stay with us.